workers, my name's Kim Siever. Welcome back to my channel. One thing I learned when I took economics in university is that I don't think a lot of people actually realize that economics is functionally just a bunch of theories. And I don't mean theory as in the scientific meaning of theory, the highest statement of fact that one can have in science. No, I mean like a bunch of guesses. For example, there's the monetary theory of inflation, also called the monetarist theory of inflation. You might not know the term, but you're probably familiar with the theory. Increase in the money supply increases inflation. This is a prime example of what I'm talking about. For this theory to be true, it requires a boatload of assumptions. The money supply increases. The increase in supply makes it to consumers. Consumers aren't putting the extra money in savings. Consumers aren't using the extra money to pay down debt. Consumers spend the money in the market. That spending is higher than normal spending, leading to increased demand. Companies don't respond to the increased demand by making workers produce more. Companies don't respond to increased demand by hiring more workers. Companies don't respond to the increased demand by investing in machinery to automate production. Companies don't respond to the increased demand by increasing inventory. No other factor has increased demand. Companies raise their prices. This is the problem. These theories exist in a vacuum and are only true in very specific circumstances, but people who parrot this theory always leave that part out. In this case, the market is very complex. Consumers may not get all that extra money supply, and if they do, they may not spend it on more goods and services. If they do spend it in the market, companies may just increase supply instead of increasing prices. It's not set in stone that an increase in money supply must lead to an increase in inflation. There is only one thing that directly causes inflation: companies raising prices. You see, inflation is the increase in the price of goods and services in the economy. And if those prices increase, it's because those who set the prices increased them. Remember, inflation is not an autonomous phenomenon. It's just a measurement. Inflation measures the difference between the cost of goods on one point in time and the cost of the same goods at a later point in time. Inflation measures the difference. It doesn't cause that difference. The cost of those goods are set by the companies who sell those goods. If they increase their prices, it's because they chose to increase their prices. Now, it may be possible that those who decided to increase their prices did so because they thought demand for their products and services was too high, but that's certainly not the only factor they consider when deciding to raise their prices. Maybe a drought halfway across the world devastates production of raw materials they need for their products, increasing the price on the reduced supply of that input. Maybe a war in another country leads to an increase to the energy they need to produce their product. Maybe they opened multiple locations or bought new machinery, driving up their operating costs. Maybe their unionized workers recently won a new contract, which includes wage increases. Or maybe they hired more workers. Maybe their shareholders are demanding better dividends. Maybe their competitors are raising their own prices. The list goes on. Even so, none of these directly increase the prices of goods and services in the market. They are simply factors that are considered by those who do choose to increase those prices. Even if their reason for increasing prices is reasonable, they are the ones increasing inflation. The government doesn't cause inflation. You and I don't cause inflation. Companies cause inflation. Solidarity.